I remember times where I would try to turn my screen to show them, hey, this is how the numbers are flowing in. This is how we're using this to make decisions and determine interest rate and that type of stuff. Like, I wanted to help.
I think your numbers are just as important as what you're doing out there. And you can work yourself to death, and those numbers are what's going to give you the knowledge of what you're working for.
So Ava, thank you for joining me today. I'm excited about our conversation and to learn a little bit more about your story and why you love ag and why you're a part of this industry. So to kind of kick us off here, for the person watching or listening to this podcast here, let's start off with your background, right? Talk about where you're from, what you've been doing, and what's brought you to this point in your life. We'll start off there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was raised on a fourth generation dairy farmers. Both my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family were in dairy. I was born on a really small leased dairy operation, and my parents were able to build out their own kind of exactly what they wanted. But by the time I was 6, so we lived in the middle of nowhere. So like I said, Central California. We were homeschooled, and it was all centered around the farm. I got to wake up as early as possible and go help and get my work done so I can get back out and do anything and everything that needed to get done. So that's where my love came for it. I learned my ABCs because my dad would give me a stack of payables when he was in the milk barn and say, hey, I need this sorted. Look at this and try to match it to, this ABC foldable here and figure it out. And as I got older, I just wanted to take on as much as I possibly could and learn as much as I could. And that kind of led to when I was 12, I started reconciling the milk statements and helping out in the medicine barn and helping out, keeping track of medications and supplies that would come in, just anything that I could do to help. I would run vet check reports for my dad to make sure that those were all entered in correctly as we were trying to learn the system and taking on our very first laptop, because that was, very integrated at that time. And it was great. My parents were just really hard workers, but I think technology was going faster than they could keep up. So me being at home and being young, they would just throw things at me and say, figure it out. And I would, because anything I could do to help, I was happy to do. So, I told my parents I wanted to be a teacher, and my dad said, nope, you're going to be an accountant because we need it. I said, okay, well, if that's what we need to do, then that's what we need to do. He was like, you're going to make more money working for me anyways.
Did he just kind of naturally see those skill sets though in you as you were growing up and kind of taking hold of that stuff? Yeah. So,
and as I was getting older, my parents would say, like, we would watch you work and we would see that you could find the holes in things. And we knew that what you were going to do was going to be bigger than we even could imagine.
Wow. Okay. So that's kind of, let's talk a little bit about farming then in Central California, because that's not the typical mindset out here in the Midwest, right? To where a lot of people, it's kind of indoctrinated in us, in our way of thinking that, hey, we raise our kids on the farm, they come back to the farm. Whereas your parents seem like they recognized some different skill sets. They had a bigger plan for you and knew that, life had more to give you, than just what the farm could give there. So talk a little bit about that, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so my dad was really big on education. He wanted to be a veterinarian, and his dad, same thing, pulled him back onto the farm because he was going to have to help. So he's seen that in his kids and wanted us to learn this other pieces, but also be able to come back and be that added value for the operation. So he's seen that I was really good and naturally gifted in finding the holes in things. So their plan for me was that you were going to go take on a couple dairy accounts and you were just going to specialize in ag and help us out with our holes because we could trust you. But one thing that they told me at a very young age and stuck with me is you're going to have to talk to farmers. You're not going to go and get this education and talk over their heads and not be able to explain things to them. You're going to need to talk to them, not at them. So I took that and I actually got a minor in communications purely for that, because I knew I don't ever want to be on the next call with somebody and them not understand, not being able to connect, because there's so much lost value there.
Or feel like they're below you.
Exactly. Because they're not.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So I started taking accounting classes in high school, and I said I'm going to learn and do everything that I can. And I was dual enrolled before dual enrollment. I started taking our college classes in 7th grade because I was like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it as fast as possible.
You're way ahead of the curve then. Your childhood was definitely different than probably most people in the Midwest.
Absolutely.
For sure. But absolutely. I mean, talk a little bit though too, because you were homeschooled. So you were done with classwork for the day within 3 or 4 hours and then back out to the farm, or what?
Yeah, I would ask my dad, wake me up when you're getting up. He'd wake me up at 6, and I would start still at 6:30, be done by about 11.
Okay.
And anything and everything else that needed to be done, I was happy to do it.
And then how many cows did you guys have on the dairy?
So at our peak, we were at 13,500 milking cows.
Oh, wow.
We were the 7th largest privately owned dairy in the United States at that time.
Holy, okay.
Mhm.
Wow. That is impressive. That
Yeah.
is, so our feed yard was 14,000 head, but I remember in the kind of the death days is what I'll call it, kind
Mhm.
of before we went bankrupt and everything there, we started taking care of some of the local dairy cows and stuff like that as well. Just the infrastructure. Like
Mhm.
we weren't built for it.
Nope.
The amount of problems I remember my dad and my brother dealing with just trying to doctor dairy cows. Like it
Yep.
just didn't work. Like the facilities were not big enough to handle all of it.
And my I think where my dad kind of lost side of things was that he thought 5,000 and you doubled to 10, it's the same animal. And
Yeah,
it's a
no.
completely different operation at that point. You can't just do everything twice as big. There are so many other factors. He hit that ceiling.
Mhm.
And unfortunately with dairies and a lot of family farms, it takes a while to catch that. And there's a lot of zeros on the end of that before
Mhm.
you can figure out what's going wrong and how to turn that ship around.
Yep. Yep. So, what were some of the biggest issues and stuff that you saw your dad deal with inside of the dairy industry, and some of those things that you just remember witnessing that kind of are imprinted on you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think unfortunately the largest is just being able to trust people. He just needed people that had expertise and where to find it and then being able to trust them. I remember we hired a bookkeeper who used to teach QuickBooks
Hmm.
and we didn't find out till later on that unfortunately there was some theft going on with that. And then the herdsman kind of spread himself thin because he started taking on 5 or 6 accounts and my dad didn't find that out till later that, hey, I thought you were spending all this time here and you were really split up a bunch of other revenue streams. So I think I think if he would have waited to expand until his 7 kids were a little bit older, my youngest brother was 2 when they lost the operation. So I think if we would have just been a little bit older, it would have been a
Yep.
completely different thing.
And what year was that when the operation went under?
2009. Yeah,
2009.
2009. Unfortunately, my father passed away, and my mom tried to keep the dairy operation going for another 18 months or so.
Yep.
But with the grief of his loss and everything else, it was too much.
Yeah, how about from a number standpoint though, right? So that's obviously one of the big issues that we try to solve in legacy farmer is that the husband or father or guy leading the operation has all the numbers in his head, and this type of situation unfortunately happens. I know a few different families just in Western Kansas that this has happened to the past few years there. And, the spouse is left taking over a multi-million-dollar operation and doesn't know where anything's at. So was it a similar type of situation for your mom that she was dealing with, or were you guys more
Oh,
organized and everything just because of your upbringing?
no, I think we were until we got that big, right? And
Yeah.
once you get that big, you have to run it like a business. You can't
Yeah.
just run it like a farm anymore, really. And my parents used to say, we know when we're making money and losing money, we don't know where or how.
Yeah.
And that's where having the software, they would have been able to see it just by updating their monthly numbers. They
Yeah.
would have seen it quickly.
How much money do you think bled through the bottom of the operation there by not having stuff structured and tracked there with that big of a dairy?
Unfortunately, millions,
Yeah.
because I mean, they not only did they have the 13,000 milking cows over 3 different dairy barns that were kind of structured together, they also had 3,000 acres of cropland.
Yeah.
So between all of that, there's millions of dollars.
And then how big was the team there? How many employees did your dad have and that type of stuff?
Yeah, 87. Yeah, 87
87.
families. Yep.
87 team members. Holy crap. Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's the thing is when he was at 5,000, how big was the team then?
30,
Yeah.
if that.
So, I
And
mean,
not
even,
only was it 30, but it was 30 that had been with him for 15 years.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you got to 87 and you have a guy that's been here for 2 weeks and then decides he doesn't like it and doesn't show up, and then you have
Got some
unions
leaves.
that start coming in, it's a whole different ball game.
Well, and I'll never forget my dad saying this. He said it on a documentary that we filmed back in 2020, when it's really the first time he talked about the farm operation going under. But a lot of the guys that worked on the feed yard, a lot of them still live in Tribune, Kansas, too. My dad sees them regularly, but he worked with those guys for 25 years, some of them more than 30 years. And the number one thing he was concerned about when he got word from my granddad that, hey, we're shutting everything down, it wasn't necessarily about his family. It was about all the
Yeah.
families that lived right there on the feed yard. They had dedicated their lives to helping my granddad and my dad build that feed yard, and he had nothing to give him.
Oh, exactly the same thing. My
Mhm.
parents did the same thing. What are going to happen to their families?
Yep.
But, it
Yep.
wasn't, oh, we'll figure it out. But all these people have dedicated their lives to us and helping our family
Yeah. How do
farm.
we do
What
it?
happens to them?
And you get to a point where it's at 87. Yeah. If you haven't changed how you're building the business, the foundation of the business, your systems, your processes, tracking the numbers and everything, your foundation is it's built on sand at that
Yeah,
point.
exactly. We were
Yeah.
still using QuickBooks for everything, HR management, all of it.
Oh yeah, crazy, crazy. And back into that, I mean, QuickBooks now we see it now, but man, looking back at some websites or videos from 2009, it's like crap. That seems like it's not very clear videos. Like we've really come a long way there, and also a reminder that shit that was a long time ago. I'm getting old.
Yeah, yeah, and that Excel was in its infancy days too, and that's
Yeah,
where I was doing the milk receipts,
yeah.
is just plugging them into Excel and trying to figure out if I could balance and that type of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, very similar, type of stories between the two of us, which is super cool and everything there as well. Now, fast forwarding to today and really just kind of looking back at everything that's happened in the dairy industry since 2009, what changes have you seen? Or have things not changed and people are still trying to run their business like it's still early 2000s?
I see two very different avenues. I see exactly that, where people are just going through the grunt work of doing it and living in the business and not looking and working on the business. And then I see those that have taken the innovation levels and start, seeing that labor costs are too high and that's unsustainable,
Yeah.
and started putting in, mechanical milkers and stuff like that, to where whatever they can, you look forward in the next 5 to 7, 10 years, what's going to make that operation profitable, or at least limit their input expenses so that there's that room, because as
Yeah.
we know, dairy's always been tight.
Well, and just if you're wanting to update your infrastructure there,
Mhm.
just the millions of dollars that you're going to have to invest in there without, you know, guaranteed profitability, unless you
Yeah,
have some type of agreement in place with some big, food manufacturer or whatever that is, you're going to be in trouble.
absolutely. And even those are going away, right?
Hmm.
We don't have as many direct from farm to plant. There's always usually a middleman.
Yep.
The other piece of it too is even our lending structure, right? Is most lenders don't give a value for the dairy barn anymore. They give
Yep.
them the same value of dairy barn as open ground, and you have millions of dollars in infrastructure.
Yep.
So how do you make that work?
Yeah. And especially when, a majority of the asset value on your balance sheet is tied up in that dairy barn, what equity are you working off of? What safety net do you really have? It's none.
Yeah,
Right. And
exactly.
it is a true, I mean, from the bank's perspective, I can see it, right? As out of all the assets that are structures on ground, that's going to be a very, heavily depreciating asset there if you're not taking care of it and that type of stuff. So from a risk standpoint, I can see that. But from a farmer standpoint or dairyman standpoint, yeah, I need to get value for this $4 million barn that I just put up or whatever it costs there,
Yeah.
to put on my balance sheet.
Yeah. And then the lenders are looking at it too, that they know that they're not going to be able to get a renter in for it. So
Yeah.
eventually, if it can't, worst came to worst, they would be land bulldozing that dairy for open
Yeah.
ground value.
Yeah. And the problem here too is, and this is where things get a little bit testy. So when your dad doubled from 5,000 to 10,000, what was
Mhm.
the relationship like with the lenders? Were they just basically said yes and thrown out the money? And was it easy access to credit and that
Oh,
type of problem?
he was making the most money. Everything was great. And then
Yeah.
they became the yes man. And I can very vividly remember when we were allowed to talk to the bank as kids, and we were told to go to the back room and let the adults talk.
Yep.
And I remember that. I
Yep.
remember, oh yeah, the bank's coming in. The guy's standing on the back of the truck and he's going to go count cows today. Nice to meet you, sir. And okay, Ava, keep your brothers and sisters in the back room. The bank's coming. They're going to take everything if they hear you, type
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah. No, and that's I mean, obviously not a good place to be in. But and I said this a few years ago, Ava. I said, easy access to credit produces dumbass business decisions, not
absolutely.
only on behalf of the farmer, but on behalf of the bank as well. The bank not doing their due diligence and making a loan that a person. Just the fact that, and we have this happen. There was a big farm operation in Western Kansas. This was back in 2017 or something like that. Guy more than, I think he tripled his acres. So he went from, it was like 3 or 4 thousand acres up to 12,000. He bought a majority of that ground too, took on 20 some million in new debt. That farm operation went bankrupt 2 years later. And it's
You
like
always
from
see
the,
within 3 years. If it wasn't done calculated, it's when 3 years it's under. Same thing with my family operation. We made it 3 years.
so from the bank standpoint, that like, yes, I put a lot of the responsibility there on the farmer or rancher or whatever that is, but that there's just as much responsibility on the bank side of things where why would you guys approve this when from a business owner mindset, that they don't have the foundation there and it's built on sand.
Absolutely, because they look at a PD rating. A lot of
Mhm.
the times, these underwriters are fresh out of college and they're learning this stuff. And if, I hate to say this, but if you're any good at banking, you get promoted pretty quickly, and if not,
Yep.
you get out.
Yep.
So most of the times, people don't realize it's a 25-year-old that's underwriting their stuff who's never worked on a farm before.
Yeah. And doesn't understand.
Doesn't
Truly does
understand the
not
cash flow,
understand. Yep.
doesn't understand the timing gap. Just got off a call with, a family that they cotton farmers that They were renewed in August.
Yeah.
How can you run a business?
How? Yeah.
You
So,
can't.
and that just sheds light on the issues inside of the banks here. And I've said this before too, just in other podcasts and everything. Legacy Farmer was built and started off of the premise that farmers and ranchers have a massive problem not knowing their numbers, not being structured and organized. But the problem and the massive gap that's exposed from working with all these customers over the years is that we have just as big, if not bigger, of a problem on the ag banking side, and the
Oh yeah.
turnover that we're seeing, the unqualified loan officers that are advising multi-million-dollar decisions for these farmers. Like, there is a massive problem over there. And I talked a few weeks ago, Faith on our team got us some numbers here just on what USDA is projecting total ag debt to be by the end of this year, $591 billion. To me, I would say more than 70% of that is being carelessly managed or not tracked
Oh,
at the level of that it demands in today's environment.
yeah, we're saying it every day with our customers, and
Yeah.
it's frightening. And I'm really happy and fortunate to be able to help the people that I can that have jumped on and said raise their hands to because
Yeah.
they need help.
Yep.
But these banks don't know what they're doing, and a lot of
Yep.
the people who really did because the last are retiring. I've
They're
seen it.
retiring or their loan portfolio is already too big and they literally don't have the bandwidth to take on any more customers, even if they wanted to.
Yep, yep, absolutely.
So kind
It's
of
a
crazy.
national security at this point, if you ask me.
I
I think
totally
we're
agree
gonna
with
have
you.
a massive issue in the next couple
Yeah.
of years if people don't understand what's going on.
And, even working with some of our other business coaches and hearing some of them working with our Canadian members,
Mhm.
and it's from what they're saying, the lending standards in Canada are even more relaxed than what we have in the US, which just is mind blowing as well. And then just raises a red flag for what's going on up there as well.
Yeah, no, I had a Canadian farmer that I work with on Thursdays, and same
Mm.
thing. They're willing to give it to him, but if you punch the numbers, they're gonna bleed them dry. They
Yep.
can't afford it, but they're
Yep.
willing to say yes.
Past the point of no return.
Yep.
Unfortunately. So, well, let's talk a little bit too, just about your passion in ag and where that comes from and everything there. Where do you think it's really just from your childhood, or, and I'm not trying to be too personal here, but when your dad passed away and everything there, did it become that much more personal to you? Because I look back at my experience, which happened in '05, and I remember when my dad told me the feed yard was going under, but more importantly than that, I remember the years after. And that was like when the pain really hit there from walking away from a life's, your entire life's work of 45 years and everything you put into, and walking away with nothing, and seeing my dad go through an identity crisis and my mom basically cry because they got married when they were 17 and 15 and literally lived on the feed yard, never went anywhere else. My dad graduated high school. I think he was 16 or 17 and then just started working full time, So anyway, I know where my passion comes from, but I'm curious, I have that same question to you there.
Oh, absolutely. And very similar. I grew up across the street from where my dad worked my entire life. I didn't realize that husbands don't come home for lunch every day because
Yeah.
that was that. But no, absolutely. And I think that growing up and having both of my sides of my family so much into it, it was already a passion, it was always going to be a passion. There wasn't an aspect of dairy life that I did not love. And
Yep.
even mucking stalls, I was making their habitat better and an easier life for them. So there was not a job that I didn't enjoy doing. So that already had this huge passion and this thought process of, oh, I'm going to go on. I'm just going to make this even better as I get older. And then 2008, 2009 happened, right? And I watched my dad slowly become a shell of a person. I
Mm.
watched my dad watching futures numbers every single day, asking me to call him to report on it because he didn't know where dairy prices were going. And then dairy prices bottomed out right around $8, $9 a hundredweight at that point, and everybody was done. The cow kill program came in, and my dad was chosen for that. And my dad had 50 years of genetics. And not only that, he had lost his father, and he went, if I sell this, if I get it out of this, not only will the taxes not be enough to cover the family and I'll be out of a
Mm.
job, but I'm going to lose everything, the legacy that my family had built. So, December 19th, 2009, he committed suicide. And he left two suicide letters, one to the banker and one to my mom. And my mom's was, I love you. I've done everything I
Yeah.
can. Please take care of the kids. And the banker's note says, welcome to the kill, because I'm not killing my cows. And yeah,
Man.
and it was rough. It was a rough couple of
Yeah.
years.
I can't imagine, Ava.
Yeah, absolutely. And seeing my mom trying to keep it together for his legacy, and me being 14 and my youngest brother being 2, it was rough.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But also, like I've said, this passion of it is I get to do for other family farms what I wanted to do for my own.
Yeah.
And I get to do the very next best thing is keeping them farming, keeping their families being able to have this legacy because I wanted that so much for my own.
Mhm.
And it is such an a volatile industry in
Mhm.
general, right? 2% of the population feeds the rest of it, and nobody's getting into it. It's
Yeah.
rough. And it's
Yeah.
a hard life, right? Dairy's 24 hours, seven
Yeah.
days a week, 365. You don't get vacation days because there
No.
aren't any.
I
Um,
remember I remember going out and feeding cattle and handling new cattle coming in, Christmas morning,
yep, exactly.
So
And
it's like it's the way it was.
it's a hard life, and you choose that hard because it's a lot easier to go get a desk job. It really
Mhm.
is. It's a lot more comfortable, and you have an every 2 week paycheck, and
Yep.
but there is something about hard work that is lost in that. And if you ask me, that is the bigger thing. The bigger
Mhm.
issue here is life has become really comfortable for a lot of people, but
Yep.
farming is just as hard as it was, if not
Yep.
harder. And
Yep.
there's all these pressures, and if you don't understand your numbers, it's unnecessarily harder.
So, do you think for the people that do understand their numbers and are doing a lot of the work that like we do here in Legacy Farmer, do you think it's easier for them or a lot less easier than the people that don't know their numbers, or how would you gauge that?
Yeah, I'd say it's a lot less stressful. The
Yeah.
people that are coming in to Legacy Farmer and already have a decent gauge on their numbers and are just looking for some more structure and long-term planning, they have an aura about them that's different than the
Yep.
stressed farmers that are coming in who need an operating line. But
Mhm.
the crazy thing is, even those farmers, I guarantee you, and what I've noticed from mine is by about the third meeting, their demeanor changes. They go from
Yes.
this elephant sitting on their chest to even though nothing really has been fixed just yet, but
Yeah.
it's out of their head and on paper. It's in the system. They don't have to sit up at late at night thinking about it because it's right there.
Yeah. And they can finally, like you said, breathe for the first time.
Yeah.
Right. So, but also too, even with, customers I've worked with over the years as well, there's just different level of patience
Mhm.
in people, right? The people that are structured and organized, their time horizon is 2 years into the future, 3 years into the future. The decisions that they're looking at today are based on 2 to 3 years in the future
They're
versus,
proactive.
yeah, versus the guys that are coming in, they're stressed to the max.
Mhm.
They're drinking, they're doing all this stuff. They're not structured and organized in their numbers and everything like that. They're surviving week to week or month to month, right? And they
Yeah.
have no
Their
idea if the
decisions are
bank's,
a lot differently too. They are
yes.
making less rational decisions
Yep.
at that point in time because they're going off of
Yep.
quick emotion and not being able to think about what this long-term piece looks like.
Yep. And when you combine, again, easy access to credit
Hmm.
and just somebody that wants to, throw it all on the line and bet the farm or whatever, that's the type of scenario and environment that you're building there. And yeah, those type of people, it doesn't matter if they want to be able to think long term, they literally can't because they have payments coming up after fall harvest, for example,
Yep.
that they're
Or
trying.
any small issue that happens becomes a large inconvenience.
Mhm.
The government shutdown, FSA not being there to sign checks. The farmer gets 45 days behind and now his credit's shot and renewal is that much harder than if he had his numbers and was
Yep.
ready for stuff like that and
Yep.
wasn't just at the bank's mercy with whatever they're willing to put their hands in.
So let's talk a little bit about farm credit, right? So how many years were you at farm credit?
I was at Farm Credit for 4 years.
Okay. And then where after that?
So that was my most recent
Okay.
job.
Most recent was there, right? Before the accounting was before that.
So my accounting was right out of high school. I
Okay.
went and started working for a CPA firm where I got my master's, and I hated it because the head CPA told me it's gonna be 10 years before you can actually have a conversation with the farmers and
Oh,
then to trust you with what you're talking
yeah.
about.
Okay.
And I said, well, I don't got 10 years to help other farmers, so I'm gonna go work in banking now.
Yeah.
And I jumped over to Rabo.
Okay.
So Rabo Agrifinance is where I started my banking career. And yeah, again, all of it has been my entire career has been helping farmers.
Yep.
And then working for
So
the farm. Sorry.
So I'm curious. One of the biggest reasons that I left the bank is because I felt like I was handcuffed to what I could really say and how I could really help these people. Because probably a lot like you,
Mhm.
when I had customers come in and sit in my office, yeah, they're sitting across the table from me, but I felt like I was talking to my parents. Right? It was more to me. It was just more real and more authentic to me, because I didn't want them to go through the same thing my parents went through, which I'm sure is true for you as well. Did you experience similar types of handcuffs in the accounting firm and then at Rabo and then also at Farm Credit as well?
Yeah, and I think farm credit was probably the worst because I knew the most at that point. And
Yep.
not only that, but I was overseeing the underwriting department. So I was teaching new bankers how to look at things. And I was noticing that my favorite accounts, the ones I was up at night, 2 o'clock in the morning underwriting, were the ones that are about to go under, were the widows, were the
Yep.
ones that were going through something, and trying to find the different avenues of, okay, they have these three different options, but never being able to tell them that because those weren't the most advantageous for the bank.
For the
Even if
bank.
it
Yep.
was the best for them,
Mhm.
it was too risky for the bank. And after about a year of that and seeing how bad this last, liquidity crisis has been,
Mhm.
um, Legacy Farmer came and I said, okay, well, this is my way to be the bank without the banker without the bank.
Yep.
And
Was it your your customer that said that, or was it somebody else's on the team?
it
Because
was my customer that
okay,
said, Ava,
that's
you're the
such a good
banker
tagline.
without
It's
the
such.
bank. And I'm
Lance told me
using it
that.
on every call
Lance told me
because
that. I was like, that is so profound and exactly
yeah,
the perfect definition of what we do.
exactly. And I go, I can show you everything that, because I mean, Legacy Farmer, another great thing about it is it's almost an underwriting tool.
Mhm.
It really is. It's a stuff that we look at banking that the rest of people don't have access to. And we
Yep.
can run these scenarios. Yeah, sure, you can go term out this, but the interest is going to cost you 70,000 more a year, and you can't afford that.
Yep.
And being
Yep.
able to pivot on their goals, their like what they want for their life and their operation without being handcuffed.
Yep.
Being able to teach them. I had another customer that said, "Hey, I have a working capital covenant. What is that?" They've been with the same bank for 15 years and had a working capital covenant. They had no idea what the meaning of that
So
was.
some of the customers though too that I've worked with, I'm like, hey guys, can you shoot me over your security agreement? And I was like, when was the last time you actually filled out a new one? They're like, what is that? And
Mhm.
then they go ask for it from their banker. It's 12 or 15 years old. I'm like, you guys had no idea what the bank has as collateral, but they have everything.
Exactly. And they always do.
Oh man. Yeah.
And I think that's another freeing piece is being able to tell them once we get
Mm.
to you to a spot, you can negotiate this. You don't just have to take what they give you.
Yep. No, and to me, it was so empowering as we started to kind of figure that out because the first version of Legacy Farmer, as you know, was really just like group coaching and consulting on the operational side. And then we started building out the first version of Farmer Metrics, and it's obviously become what it has today. But I truly feel that the sequence of events, and I would say the same thing for your life,
Mhm.
to me, the sequence of events and how things happen, the timing that they happen in my life, there's no more divine timing than that. Right?
Yeah.
Like everything happened in perfect timing. Same thing for you and what brought you here and how we're, trying to impact the industry is in as big a way as we can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll tell you, even from an employment side, there is no, oh, great, it's Friday. Oh God, it's Monday, or
Yeah.
type of things anymore. I get
Mhm.
to wake up and help people,
Yep.
and I get to help people that are impacting our country.
Yep.
It's a blessing.
Without having to deal with the typical office politics bullshit that you have to deal with
Yeah,
inside the bank. Hated it.
yeah,
Hated it. And also,
absolutely.
too, you're in that place for 8 or 9 hours a day. Anybody super efficient only needs to be there for 3 or 4. Right. But then you have customers coming in, or, anybody else in the office that wants to talk drama. It's like, guys, I don't care. Let me do my job. And then I'm going to go take care of other stuff or whatever that
Yeah,
is there versus
no,
here. Yeah. There's just more freedom.
yeah, absolutely. And my thing, I think, with the bank too, was I would work 14-hour days because there was more people I could help,
Yeah.
and now I get to have a larger impact
And
with it.
that's so rare though, too.
Hmm.
Right. So for my problem customers, and there's 3 families I can think of their names off the top of my head of that were just in bad situations. I arguably helped put them there because I went to bat for them with loan committee. And we arguably got loans approved for somebody that we should have had a tough conversation with and saying, hey, you guys need to look at either selling some assets or closing up shop here and walking away with millions of dollars versus losing it all in bankruptcy and that type of stuff there.
Yeah.
But
How
I
many
just,
times have they told you that you can't have that conversation with the lawyers involved?
oh God. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were the things. It was just from a moral standpoint, there were so many things that were conflicting with me internally. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Did not
Absolutely.
want to do it. So I decided to not listen to my wife's advice, and I took the jump and left. And we had 2 babies at home and 4 grand in the bank, and I had no plan. So,
Oh,
and here
happy it
we
worked
are.
out.
Here we are 10 years later. We're trying to take on the industry by storm. So,
Yeah, it's
um,
working.
but but let's talk a little bit too, just around like farm credit and that type of stuff there, right? So you see the same issues that I see inside of the bank, but talk a little bit more, some of the underwriters and stuff that you were trying to train and that type of stuff there. Was there just massive knowledge gaps from people that you were trying to train that were not raised in ag and just did not have the level of expertise that you had?
Yeah, absolutely. I would tell the people that, were really in charge of the hiring process of there are people who have grown up on farms and there are people who have not.
Yep.
And the training gap between the people who get it and the people who don't is just that. So we would have to, I mean, my recommendation for doing that was just bringing them out and making them handshake the farmer and understand what's going on, because that they were just another number on a paper.
Hmm.
And the people who grew up and seen these struggles with their parents felt it differently, worked harder for things than those that didn't.
Yeah. So when you're, let's talk, I'm also curious too, even about the accounting firm, right? Because the way that we position the numbers inside of Farmer Metrics, it's built for the business owner and the banker. It's not used for tax planning, right? It's not QuickBooks or anything like that. What were some of the gaps there that you noticed inside of the accounting firm that you worked at? Was the accounting firm just focused on tax planning and, hey, this is what we're going to do? Or they focused on more comprehensive consulting like what we do here in Legacy Farmer?
Yeah, no, there was none of that. And if
Yep.
it was one CPA that was willing to take you for a couple weeks in December, and there wasn't a whole lot of tax planning you can do with 2 weeks to the end of the year,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. There's no way.
Yeah, and a lot of it was just number crunching, and it
Mhm.
was okay, we're gonna go and do this, and that's all. And it wasn't as impactful. Because even now, from trying to learn the tax planning piece, I had to go and get a whole degree in it
Yep.
before I could really understand that piece. But I like to say that there's three different types of accounting. There's cost accounting, there's tax accounting, and then there's financial accounting. And what we do here is financial accounting. We're actually looking at that cash flow. We're looking at what things cost you, the ins and the outs, and not the jumbledness of what a tax prepper needs. And
Yep.
and that
It's
piece.
more, it's just more comprehensive, right?
Yeah,
Financial accounting to me is comprehensive, from tax planning to banking to business decisions to what the line of credit balance is going to be throughout the year, which is going to drive, your day-to-day decisions on the operation. Like all, it's just more comprehensive.
yeah. But it's more than just personal, right?
Mhm.
It's a business. You have to learn the
Yep.
business side of things,
Mhm.
or it's going to get away from you with too many zeros on the end.
And the other thing too that I've noticed, right? So there were some loan officers that I'd worked with that were not raised on a farm and that type of stuff. And to me, they didn't have the emotional IQ to understand the type of person that they were working with, right? Again, going back to what you said, if you didn't grow up, there's a huge gap between people that grew up on the farm and people that didn't. If you didn't grow up on the farm, you don't truly understand the weight
Mhm.
of these people's decisions, but also too the weight of their identity as well. Like
Absolutely.
like they
They're all in. They've
yeah,
got
they're all in.
nothing else.
Yeah.
And they can't just go and get that office job because
Yep.
they've been, they don't got a lot of them, unfortunately, don't have the degree, don't have anything to pivot. It's everything. And same thing
And
with the loan officers, right? Is
yeah,
they either got it or it was a nice cushy job where they got a company truck and they got to drive around and be the big shot.
yeah. And nothing aggravates me more or triggers me more than these ag loan officers who farm 1,000 acres on the side on the weekends or whatever and try to pretend that they're in the same arena as true business owners.
Oh,
And then they
absolutely.
try to talk. And then those are the ones that I've learned over the years talk down the most to their customers as well, because they're a farmer. They know what they're doing. Okay, cool, dude. If you want to jump into the same pool as me, then take away the cushy 100 grand a year salary and let's see who actually
Yeah.
survives. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's, you know
no.
what I mean?
And I say this to my customers, and I've said this my entire career. Unless they're willing to go out and milk cows with you and go
Yeah.
ahead and feed with you,
Mhm.
their advice is worth what you pay for it.
Yep. 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 So, and that's the other thing too, right? And that's why I also felt out of integrity as a loan officer too, to a certain level. The reason being because I still had the consistent salary and that type of stuff. Yes, I grew up on the farm, so I wanted to help people there, but it's impossible to truly understand the weight of the decision that they're making, right? And feel that until, I took the jump into what we're doing now and trying to build out all this. Like, it's just different. It's just
Yeah.
different. It's a different game. It's a different way of thinking. It's a different stress. Like, it's just a different game.
Yeah. And it takes a different person to be able to do
Hmm.
that too, because I mean, for me, the level of risk, I've grown up very entrepreneurial minded. Both
Yep.
my sides of my family were. That risk tolerance, I lost it when I seen my parents lose everything.
The X factor for Ava though is losing your dad
Yeah.
and you understanding, like you
Yeah.
understand. Like, and
Absolutely.
that's the thing, is like, that's what's tough to find in the industry. And that type of experience, yes, obviously terrible, but man, I can guarantee it's turned Ava into a hell of a leader of people
Oh,
beyond just the numbers.
absolutely, because the empathy piece is there. And I
Yes.
tell you right now, if any farmer called me and said they needed help, I'd be right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the things. And like, that's the thing, is like, those are the scars on life that make us who we are today. And there's some level of appreciation that has to be there for that because
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. Made me who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, divine timing and everything led you to right where you're at now. And man, it's all working out pretty well.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
all right. Well, anything else here? Like, I guess, jumping into the members and stuff that you've worked with so far, what has been your experience working with the members that we brought into Legacy Farmer, and what are some of the big wins and stuff that you've noticed right off the bat with these people?
Yeah, I think by far the biggest win is just that, like I said earlier, that aura of by the third meeting, it's a completely different person.
Yeah.
Their drive is there again. Their hope is there again. Their buy-in is because you talk to
Yeah.
that first meeting and people are going, "Do I have to sell everything? Just tell me
Yeah.
now."
Yeah. Just tell
And
me
by
now. God.
and by the third one, 3 weeks in, they're going, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be great next year. I can't wait till this is all and I have a year of this under my belt and I can make these decisions." It is completely changing from
Yeah.
that first, even like I said about the third one.
And
Um,
the thing with that too, though, right? So why are we able to do that so quickly on a meeting when any good banker could do that too? It's not like we're doing complex, like really complex things here, right? So why is the bank not taking the initiative if a customer is stuck in scarcity to say, "Hey, come in, let's get these things sorted, let's get them worked out or whatever," just to give them some level of clarity? That's the other thing that just triggers me
yeah,
about modern day
for
banking as
sure.
well.
And it all comes down to liability.
Yeah. Yeah.
100% of the time because
Mhm.
I've said that exact same thing. Why don't we just print this out and show them?
Mhm.
Because we can't tell them how to run their operation.
I
They have to come to these numbers on their own. Here's a business consultant that they can teach them that's just going to tell them what their ground's worth and how they can get their equity out.
So our risk rating for all of our loans was still built in Excel when I was at the bank. And I remember, I remember times where I would try to turn my screen to show them, "Hey, this is how the numbers are flowing in. This is how we're using this to make decisions and determine interest rate and that type of stuff." I remember my boss walking by a few times and I'm just cranking that thing back close because that was stuff like I wanted to help,
Yeah.
but from liability reasons, like you said, like, yeah, you couldn't do that. Your hands are tied,
No, absolutely.
which
And
is,
and I tell that to my legacy farmer customers now. Hey, banks have you on a rating system, and the
Mhm.
faster they know you know your number, the better your rating gets.
And to the number of customers too, Ava, that I've had come in over the years, and some of them very seasoned, been in the family, been farming for 30, 40 years. The idea of even being able to negotiate interest rates, they didn't
Yeah.
know this. And I'm like, holy shit, guys, really? You didn't know? And then you look in, you find out that, and this was, I'm thinking of one specific customer. This is back in 2021 when we had a lot lower interest rates and stuff than we do today. That customer was at 7% on their operating line, $30 million in equity, solid real estate, 7% when he found out everybody else in the group was getting 5 or 4.25 or 4.75 or whatever. You can imagine how pissed they were,
Oh, absolutely. They're taking
but they
advantage of
they
because
never
they
had any
were the
idea.
golden goose for the bank.
Yep. Never
Yeah,
had any
and
idea they could negotiate interest rates.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And those are those tidbits that I like to show our legacy farmer customers is I know it's a large investment in front, but all those pieces
It's
save you tens of thousands of
mhm.
dollars in the course of just a couple months.
And not just over and not just over 1 or 2 years either, because the education that they're getting here is going to serve them for the next several decades.
Oh, absolutely.
You
And
know,
that's where, I mean, I've told a couple people too, if you want to get stronger, you get a personal trainer because they're going to be there at that time and you're going to have to show up. And it's kind of the same thing with us is just having somebody that you have to talk to about your
Mhm.
finances every week, once a month, whatever your schedule's on, keeps you accountable. It
Yeah.
keeps you dialed in. It keeps you keeping all this on the forefront and not up at night worried about it.
But it keeps you logical is the bigger point that I would argue as well. Because every time I've ever had a customer come to me and say, "Well, man, I'm stuck in scarcity. I'm stressed out. I don't know where I'm at." Okay, cool. When was the last time you updated your numbers? Oh, 3 months ago, we got busy with harvest. Okay, great. So the number one way to kill the scarcity, go update your numbers right quick, and then you're good.
Yeah,
And that's at time and time again,
absolutely.
So all right. Well, I appreciate you taking time to have this discussion with me today. It's been great to get to know you at a much deeper level and everything. And so cool that a lot of our story is the same there as well. Now, leaving the podcast and everything like that, is there anything or any lesson that you would like to share that you think farmers or ranchers or dairymen need to know that is not common knowledge?
I think your numbers are just as important as what you're doing out there in the field or in
Mhm.
the pens or whatever you're doing because you can work yourself to death and those numbers are what's going to give you the knowledge of what you're working for.
Yep.
And some of these guys are spending their wills for something that they're losing tens of thousands of dollars and it's not worth their time.
Yep. Yep. And it's not ultimately building the life or the legacy that they want for their family. And this is going to be the last question I'm going to ask you. How do you define the word legacy? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Legacy for me is the preservation of the hard work that has come before you and the work that you've put in, right?
Mhm.
Farmers, their legacy is in their life's work because it shows the quality of the ground, the genetics, all these things that their hard work 365 has given their families and preserving that. And that's
Yep.
what legacy means to me because
Yep.
life, like I said, has gotten a lot easier in some ways. And anybody who's farming is choosing hard, but
Yep.
they're choosing hard because of that legacy that they're able to give to their families for those that have come before them and those that are coming after them.
Yep. But any meaningful life wasn't, experienced down an easy path.
No, it wasn't. And we're
So
losing that today. So farming
yeah,
is just one way to help preserve that.
absolutely. All right, Ava, thank you again for taking the time with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice talking to you.
All right.